Its U.S. office was first Berkeley, then Oakland, and one of our premier projects was called Cities for Climate Protection. And so if you're familiar now with every community in Marin, for example, and Sonoma now has climate action plans, greenhouse gas reduction goals. Oakland does, Berkeley does, San Francisco, many cities all across the country and the world. All of that grew out of that project, Cities for Climate Protection. And I raised that. It's still going. It's not as staffed as it was, but partly the recession affected all nonprofits. So nonprofits were really hit by funding, but the activity by cities is still alive and well. There's some things that the state can do in relationship to sustainable communities, but the state's role is a little bit less. In this regard, it's really the locality's role. And I say that, well, because you all can influence the localities. You can influence the state too, but the state's slightly harder, only because, the people that talk to us most are people who, but you can affect the localities. And right now, the fact that there is growing bicycle lanes, for example, in Oakland, that there's even, when I was on the Berkeley City Council, I served from 84 to 92. In 1990, I decided that my focus for the following 2 years, and I knew that it was going to be my end, I wasn't going to continue, was to get Berkeley to be a bicycle-friendly city. Because we're a flat city except for the hills, and the majority of our population lives in the flats. And you look at Davis, you look at lots of other communities, Palo Alto, and the percent of trips made by bicycle far exceeds Berkeley. Why? So we did a survey, very informal, but just cruised around the town. It was what was then Urban Ecology, East Bay Bicycle Coalition, some other groups. We basically talked to people. What, do you have a bike? Yes. What do you use it for? Oh, only on the trails. Why? They're afraid. They're scared of cars. And so we thought, we have to make Berkeley a bicycle-friendly city. So we, put into place the beginning of all the bicycle boulevards. But, we're still, I'm not saying it is. I'm glad it's begun, but, we ain't where we should be, right? I mean, given that we had in mind back in 90 and it's 2012, we're not very far. But the reason we're as far as we are is because of resident pressure and because the creation of Bicycle Friendly Berkeley and other bike advocacy groups. Now, we're going to have a similar thing with the other things we care about. Now, I'm going to quickly get into another issue. Sustainable communities are good for a lot of reasons, but I'll give you one of the key reasons, climate change. And if we're focused on sustainable communities from the point of view of climate change, we've got to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. If we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we have to understand where they're coming from. And I'm sorry, but right here in the East Bay, they're coming from transportation. Transportation and natural gas. So while solar on your roof is a nice thing, if you haven't done yet full high efficiency or gotten rid of your car, don't put solar on your roof. Because solar on your roof in Oakland or Berkeley or El Cerrito is only going to take care of about that much carbon, because all it does is take care of your electricity. And the carbon in your household is in your natural gas. It's in your heater, your water heater, your furnace, that sort of thing, okay, your stove, and in your transportation. So, how do we get a sustainable community? We got to defy the tendency in Berkeley and other communities for NIMBYs to say, oh, not here, oh, we like our lovely two-story or one-story single-family residence type of ambiance. And there's no appreciation for the richness that density brings. Not only the richness that it brings, but the affordability, or the ability to not have to use a car. So right now, we have, in both cities, too high of requirement of parking spaces for development. A parking space, to add it to a development, is $10,000 to $50,000. That's how much the developer has to put, which is then put on the cost of the housing, making the housing unaffordable. Right? So if we want affordable housing, we want sustainable communities, we want to address climate change, we got to get better density, we got to get out of our cars, and we got to address our natural gas use in our homes and buildings. I'm going to stop now so Andy can talk, and we're going to do a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
I walked here. So I do have a Prius.
I walked here as well, and I also have a Prius. And efficiency at East Bay Mud, some opportunities that we have for clean energy and energy efficiency through East Bay Mud, working with your local cities, and join the conversation about smart growth and where we go forward in the East Bay. We're here today to talk about progressive opportunities, and there is a major opportunity in the area of sustainable development because we're able to actually create jobs from the practice of implementing policies that encourage sustainability by engaging in jobs for energy efficiency, by engaging in jobs that create renewable energy, by having jobs that encourage water efficiency. Many of these policies help create jobs. I think recycling is another area that we're not focusing on today, but that's a key area where if we enhance sustainability in all of these different policy areas, we can create jobs. And that's and the fact that many of these jobs will be local jobs. You cannot outsource energy efficiency. And we save people money in the process. And that's why this is so important for the vitality of our community. The climate crisis is real. From the perspective of East Bay Mud, where we are in charge of delivering your water, we have that responsibility to you to make sure that you have clean, reliable drinking water 365 days per year. We look at what happens with climate change and the impact that climate change will have on the snowpack. With rising temperatures, that means the snow is going to stay snow much longer. Much shorter, and it's going to get hotter, and that means we're going to have more sudden flood events down the river. That means we're going to have strain on our whole water supply system, and climate change is going to have some very serious impacts for the way we handle water in California, not to mention skiing. So, that's just one reason upon many. I mean, we have rising sea level rise. Talk about what happens to the Port of Oakland and to our own wastewater treatment plant, our major infrastructure, our parks that we're planning for the shoreline. All of these important resources are threatened by climate change. Not to mention our health. In my daily work, I work on public health. Advocating for clean air and clean energy because climate change is going to increase asthma. When we have higher temperatures, that pollution already is. When we have higher temperatures, the chemical ozone is highly sensitive to increased temperatures, and that means that the amount of days that we can go outside and not feel pain and tension in our lungs, literally chemical burning in our lungs, those days are going to multiply 5 or more fold, and that's a very serious issue. So that's why I'm concerned about climate change, and we need to look at all of the different sectors that contribute and look at what can we do. The state level is doing a lot, and I think we're fortunate to live in California, where our state has already passed comprehensive climate legislation, AB 32, and while not perfect, it goes so far in reducing greenhouse gases to 1990 levels by 2020. And I think it's important to look at the opportunity of AB 32 and to see what are the different areas where we're able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a way that enhances local community vitality, specifically in green jobs. Looking at that, East Bay Mud has a unique opportunity working with, so far the cities of Berkeley and Richmond have expressed interest in working with East Bay Mud to form a community choice aggregation. That's a new program that's been adopted by the state a long time ago, but only recently has been made available for East Bay Mud to play a role. And these cities are interested in being able to look at the funding streams that go towards energy efficiency and your utility bills, and to have more local choice over where does your electricity come from. The state is headed towards 33% renewable energy by 2020. That is a fantastic, ambitious goal, but we need to go further. The climate crisis is one where future generations really are depending on us to get this right. And if we don't, I think we will really be looked upon unfavorably in history. I think we need to take that responsibility seriously and think about what our current opportunities are to be able to leverage jobs out of the process. So I'm excited in exploring this, and I want to ask for your support and help if you are looking at starting a green business, if you're interested in energy efficiency. What can we do about clean energy? Get involved in the process. There's some other workshops today that are looking at this topic, and so I'd encourage you to get involved and contribute to the process. So what could we do out of this? We could be able to have more local choice over how do we address energy efficiency. I think there's a lot of problems with the way energy efficiency is done in California. Assemblywoman Skinner recognizes this, introduced a bill that would be more clear that we want our energy efficiency reductions to be real. Too many times we just have some blind rebate programs that aren't really targeted. We have air conditioners being put in homes where the ducts aren't sealed. And I think that this is an area where I've heard from some trade unions as well that the issue of not sealing the ducts is an issue for the sheet metal workers, where the whole home isn't efficient. So we need to move towards a system where all of our programs are shaped towards having a more efficient home, not just having some piecemeal rebate programs here and there. So that's some of the opportunity, and I look forward to discussing that and other issues during Q&A.
So let's open up to a question and answer. If you could please introduce yourself and say what organization you're from, and go ahead and ask away. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm John Curro. I'm the chair of an organization called West Berkeley Artisans and Industrial Companies, WeRate. And when you were in the city council, Nancy, and Lonnie Hancock was mayor, we had a great community mobilization, which we call the West Berkeley Plan, and we zoned West Berkeley to help preserve manufacturing and industries and arts and crafts and jobs for people who do not have advanced degrees. And with smart growth, which is really the dominant philosophy at City Hall and in the Bates administration and in the staff, they have been using this to dismantle the industrial protections and the industrial zone with the idea of regional planning of that manufacturing and artisans and craftspeople can go to Oakland or Richmond, and they're moving residents. To take the industrial zone as a place to put residencies, to take industrial land and change it into either commercial or residencies under the idea of smart growth. And that goes totally against the idea of local sustainable community, because if you do not have manufacturing, you don't have jobs for people without advanced degrees, it's going to be disastrous.
Do you have a question there, or what's?
Well, what do we do? How do we integrate manufacturing into the smart growth philosophy?
I've not followed, there's always some tensions between residential and industrial type facilities. But I fought very hard, and I'll continue to fight hard, to retain industries like Pacific Steel Casting. Why? Because U.S. cannot afford to lose the ability to make those materials here in this country. Do we want to be dependent on China, wherever, for those materials that we essentially need? Do we want to have times where, traffic or routes are cut off and then we can't have access to steel? And plus, those are very important and good jobs. Plus, there's a huge greenhouse gas emissions reduction if we manufacture our materials here in this country and in this state. So I will continue to be an advocate for that. And I think within the city of Berkeley, it's wiser for us to increase the density in our transit corridors, near the Ashby BART, near the Sacramento BART, near downtown BART. Now I say that, some of you may live over there near the North Berkeley BART station. You'll probably notice that there will be high resistance around the North Berkeley BART station to increase density. but it's the completely appropriate place to do so. And so we have to have that kind of dialogue in our community so that we, there may be more pressure to put development in other areas because there's not as many neighbors to complain about it, right? But we need to increase the density where we have services already and where we have transit.
Yes, sir. What?
Yeah, my name is Aaron Lamer with an organization called Pay Localized. And I want to appreciate you mentioning the need for moving out of our cars and into a much more rich, abundant transit system. And I appreciate you also mentioning the possibility for deeper city cooperation around electrical energy. So I feel like there's actually a nexus there of opportunity in the coming years and decades, right, where we're going to need to create a robust, multimodal, electrified transit system that's going to actually be able to move people and goods around. And I'm wondering, do you see an opportunity for us to figure out a way to really robustly increase our local generation capacity to be able to provide the necessary load for that long-term necessary expansion of our transit infrastructure so we can address global warming, transit needs, as well as an opportunity, as I said, for local generation of electricity in our region?
We should have a workshop just on that, only because there's, what he's referring to is that if we go to either electrified transit, which part already is, but if we go more and we go to EVs, electric vehicles, then we could generate locally. The only flaw in that is if we're plugging everything in at night, we won't be generating locally. And the thing that we do have to be very careful about is really understanding when we move to a new system, what the impacts of that system are. And I think it is right to move towards electric vehicles, but I think it's also right for us to get towards less dependence on the sort of single use of a vehicle, right?
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I mean, transit.
And, I said I own a Prius, and that kind of really, in effect, I really resisted buying a Prius for forever because, and I don't want anybody here to, it's really far better, regardless of what car you have. Keep the car you have if it runs well. Just use it as little as possible. Don't go and, because we don't even know what we're going to do with those batteries in that damn Prius. But, car share is really a great thing that's been advancing. We need more of it. I mentioned bicycles. Certainly bicycles are not practical for every single type of trip we need to make or for, in Netherlands and Germany you see moms with the, or dads with the whole, set up on the bike and they're carting 2 or 3 kids and they're getting their groceries and everything. We see less of those kinds of bicycle vehicles around here, but maybe we'll see more of that. But obviously bicycles are not going to replace every trip. But anyway, on the localized thing, I think what Andy's talking about, and he can address it, are different communities coming together and doing the aggregate. But that aggregation may be most practical, not by dramatically increasing the number of, say, solar PV on residential single-family home rooftops, but rather on commercial properties, or on across the BART tracks, or on parking lots.
Andy, you want to address that too?
Sure, I agree that we need a whole workshop just on that, and I think some of this, I encourage you to attend the session on decentralized energy at noon for more on that, but I think we need to do a lot of study just on that and to look at these different issues. It's important to think about what are the objectives of a program. I think some of the objectives are to be able to be a model of sustainability for other regions and to show that we are able to achieve a much stronger level of renewable energy in a way that reduces greenhouse gases, that maximizes energy efficiency, that leverages our local community buying power to create jobs. So having a workshop and sessions just to study different options for designing a portfolio, including an energy efficiency portfolio, that could do these things and lay out all the options and see how they evaluate, I think will be there. It's critical to have a planning around our transit nodes and not just to be satisfied with the nodes we already have. We are not able to I think, really have the thriving community we need unless we create a system that's able to sustain ourselves off the BART line a little bit. I think we need to be able to think about what life is like on Telegraph Avenue, in between BART station to BART station, down East 14th, up MacArthur, along San Pablo Avenue. We need to be thinking about our key corridors that should have high quality bus service.
Like bus rapid transit?
Right, we need to be having much more rapid buses, funding the bus rapid transits that are in the TEP and beyond, the transportation expenditure plan that's being proposed. So I think we need to be considering how we maximize these land use opportunities, encouraging affordable housing in the mix as well. So that's, I think that kind of smart growth planning is what can also help reduce vehicle miles traveled too.
Yes, sir. Wrap up.
Al Weinrob with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. So I guess everybody's in agreement. We definitely need to do more studies of all these things. Great. I just wanted to ask a question about, Andy raised a question about energy efficiency, you know, as a key notion of reducing energy demand, because obviously this total consumption gluttony around energy is not really a way of getting to a sustainable future. And Nancy, you've done a lot of work on energy efficiency legislation, but it seems that energy efficiency is still sort of like not really moving much, you know, in any real sense. There's a program now in California called Energy Upgrade California, you know, and it's going to end pretty soon, and it hasn't accomplished that much.
It won't end very soon. It will not end.
Oh, okay, good. Well, we'll give you a chance to get there. Just to finish the question, so a large, you know, most energy efficiency programs have been administered by PG&E, and it probably doesn't take too much imagination to understand that a company that sort of thrives on continued energy growth and expansion of the electrical energy system doesn't have a whole lot of stake, you know, in energy efficiency. And in fact, what the California Public Utilities Commission has been doing has been rewarding PG&E for not achieving, you know, any of the goals. So there's a real problem in terms of energy efficiency locally, sort of breaking this whole kind of monopolized approach to energy efficiency that gets us nowhere. So I wanted to get some sense from both of you about how we could break through this mess to basically take energy efficiency out of the hands of the public utilities and to start instituting programs such as what they've done in Texas, where the state actually buys energy efficiency in the same way that it buys energy through standard offer contracts and stuff like that. So a lot of more inventive, creative kind of thinking about how we can start to really reduce demand.
All right, so quickly for those of you who may be familiar, may not, but California was sort of a pioneer. Well, we've been a pioneer in energy efficiency overall. We've got the best building code in the whole US of A, Title 24. Well, it's the best building code. Germany's and Japan's and all are better. But we also have good more than 20 years ago, early 80s, we did what is called decoupling, where our Public Utilities Commission basically, if you're an energy company, as Al pointed out, if you're PG&E, your profits are based on it. You got to get, all of us have to be hogs. The more we use, the more they make, the more the money they make, the happier they are, right? So what California did was decouple that and allowed them to, in effect, make a profit on more than just our increased demand, but also on achieving certain energy efficiency goals. And we were the first state to do so, and other states have done. And it's one of the reasons, you know, as much as we need to go further, it's one of the reasons that today, California's per capita electricity and natural gas use within the building stock is almost the same as it was in the late 70s. Whereas, across the entire rest of the U.S., it has grown by a minimum of 50% per person to 150%. So, and that was purely due to those, the whole set of policies, our appliance standards, our building codes, the decoupling, and the PUC, and various other things. All right, so now what do we do today? I've done, if you look at, since I got in the Assembly in 2008, almost all my legislation is around energy and energy efficiency, which I don't, you know, not to say that there's another good work to do, but it's, you know, I'm obsessed. And we need to go further. it's the low-hanging fruit. And as much as we have all these programs in place, I mean, I have a 900 square foot little catalog house in West Berkeley, and it was built in 1913 or 20 or something, lath and plaster, not easy to insulate, not easy, right? So even though just because, you know, I don't use a lot of heat and all, in effect, it's not an efficient house. And all the weather stripping in the world wasn't going to fix that. It, in effect, needs a whole building retrofit. So how do you get whole building retrofits? They're disruptive and they cost money. And right now, with the credit markets the way they are, if you want to try to refi to do it, you can't even damn get the money from the mortgage or the refi point. So we put into place Energy Upgrade California. We got stimulus money, but we now have more. We now have a series of bills that have been passed, and I just introduced another one. And if you go on Energy Upgrade California's site, and the city of Berkeley is helping to administer part of it, buildings of single family and up to four unit residential can get up to $25,000 low interest, long-term loans to do the efficiency upgrades. They have really good contractors listed that can come in, do the audit, do the work and such. Now, that only gets at the single family home and the 4-unit home or whatever. We have a lot of multifamily. We have a lot of commercial. If you look at the real electricity and natural gas use in the state, it's in multifamily and commercial. So Senator De Leon and myself just introduced a new bill with the Controller, John Chung, to, it's an SP something, I don't even remember the number, sorry. And it's a bond that would enable loans of much larger amounts, starting $50,000 and higher, to get into our big commercial properties and our multifamily properties. These would be union jobs, good for our building trades, and would really get us the kind of efficiency. Because our building code, that Title 24, went into effect in the mid-'80s. We have over 60% or 70% of our commercial properties were all built pre that, and more than 50% of our residential. So we have to get at with full building retrofits. I also did a bill, AB 758, that gave the Energy Commission and the PUC tools to help motivate, besides the loans, to help motivate these full building retrofits. City of Berkeley, I patterned it after an ordinance that I put into place in the City of Berkeley in 1979, RICO and SECO, and what they do, and they've been in place all those years. So Berkeley has the highest efficiency square footage of building stock in the entire state, and the reason we do is every time a property changes hands in Berkeley, it has to be upgraded somewhat. Now, the realtors are extraordinarily resistant to requiring time of sale. And so in my bill, I didn't require time of sale. And right now, the realtors, even though I didn't require it, the Energy Commission is trying to look at how to incentivize that, and the realtors have gone crazy, and they put in a new bill, Assemblymember Galgiani, to try to prevent any ability to use time of sale. But we can't prevent any ability. We don't want to use time of sale only, but we can't prevent it, because at certain times that's the optimal, because the property's vacant, and that's the, you can do the real upgrades. So we're going to fight back on that bill, but we have a lot of things going. And I describe it to you because I'm doing the best what I can on my side, but you all need to do it too, and you need to help people understand that really the first place they need to think about is how to increase the efficiency of where they live.
Nancy covered that very, very comprehensively, so I'll just add that one other area that I think we need to make easier the tools for homeowners to be able to do upgrades is to be able to have the financing either on your bill or through your property taxes and on a voluntary basis. And I think that that tool would open up a lot of opportunity for homeowners to be able to actually retrofit their homes and not be worried that you're going to make a big investment in your home, and that investment won't be lost when you go to sell your home, which could be an indeterminate amount of years. So that's been a real barrier for getting homeowners to be able to do this. There are some legal barriers doing the PACE program that Berkeley tried to initiate. The national financial organizations, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, have not been very supportive of integrating energy efficiency on your property taxes into the mortgage system. That's a real problem. We need to get through that. We need to find an alternative. Maybe working with government agencies that are able to access those kinds of payment systems easier. That may be an opportunity.
quick follow-up. It seems to me, though, Nancy and Andy, that one of the big problems is funding. I mean, you mentioned some
Right,
bills that are going to have
that's
funding, but
Yes.
you know, if we're going to really move to energy efficiency, we have to make it a true incentive for people to do so. Don't we? I mean, in a way that we make incentive for oil companies to drill or natural gas companies to drill, you know, or for factory farms to grow. I mean, we don't have that built incentive. What can we do?
Okay, so that, I suppose, not to say that it's yet perfect, it isn't, but that really, the point of all my legislation since I've got in has been to try to make more directly that incentive and to compensate for the fact that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac kiboshed our PACE program. Now, the PUC, Governor Brown's recent appointees, Mike Florio, who's an Oakland resident, who was affiliated with TURN, the consumer advocacy group, he is a very strong advocate for efficiency, so is Mark Farron. So I think we're going to start to see more. I mean, the PUC has always been pretty good, but there's the utilities do have an inordinate amount of influence. I think we're going to start to see that balance a little. I think the other thing we're going to see is that we're going to have auction revenues from the cap and trade program where we can direct more. And the good thing about Governor Brown is that his people advising him really understand that efficiency is the place where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. We're going to get the most job creation, we're going to get the most demand drop, and GHG reduction, right? And so he's going to be focused. Right now, the CARB has put, the Air Resources Board has put the cap and trade program into place. There's going to be some $1 billion or $2 billion of auction monies coming in. And what Governor Brown has said is rather than us legislators each doing a bill like, let's fund this, my favorite thing, no, my favorite thing, no, your favorite thing, instead to put the auction monies into the budget and in the budget direct them so that we could do things like direct them towards a really significant efficiency program. So I'm very optimistic about that. I'm working with the speaker on that and with the governor's office. I'm also going to be introducing a bill. The PUC is going to have some portion of those the auction revenues. And I'm doing a bill that would require them to use maybe 25% of it to upgrade California's educational facilities. All our K-12 schools, community colleges, UCs, and CSUs.
That's good.
Thomas Rosenberg, I'm here as an individual, but I've been in energy, climate change, sustainability since 1994 on 3 continents. And this question is really for Andy. When you were talking about CCA opportunities with EB-MUD, and I was wondering what are the opportunities for one being decoupled, because EB-MUD is not decoupled, and when would we be getting to full costing in terms of water rates, because there's a lot of water that's wasted. And that would, because there's some massive issues on the water side, and climate projections are suggesting that we're looking at the climate of Tijuana for the Bay Area by 2050. So,
just want to point out quickly for the audience, Andy Katz on the EB-MUD board has worked hardest, probably of all the board members, to try to charge a lot more for water usage, especially east of the hills. And unfortunately, the East of the Hills representatives have blocked that.
So I'll take those, and I think they're separate questions. So it's true both on the energy side, whether it's East Bay MUD or another version of a municipal utility, water or energy, we're decoupled. And the difference is that we're municipally run. I think decoupling is incredibly important for an investor-owned utility because that company, their obligation to their shareholders is to maximize profit. And with a municipal utility, you have more of an obligation to be responsive to the public. And I think to some degree, a regulated monopoly has that responsibility through the oversight from the Public Utilities Commission. But you're going to have more of a democratic process at a municipal utility. Now that democratic process means that when the East of the Hills has an interest in what their water rates are, and I think it depends depends on the board of directors to be able to set rates that will manage our supply best. And where we are at East Bay Line is we've come a long way, and the water community, I think, has come a long way. Although we remarkably do have one of the most steeply tiered systems in the state. It doesn't go far enough. I think we still have a situation where we have about 3 to 5% of the residential water users using about 25% of our district's water. And a lot of that water use is not in the communities west of the hills, it's in the communities east of the hills. So we need to be encouraging the right water efficiency, making sure that we have rates that encourage conservation and incentives that encourage conversion of lawns that will use a lot of water and convert that to more drought-resistant landscape. We have a new program in our Water Conservation Master Plan that will double our rebate for conversion and pay for taking out lawns and putting in drought-resistant plants on a voluntary basis, and I think that price signal will work. Our overall water supply management plan calls for us increasing conservation by 40 million gallons a day, doubling recycled water, increasing reliance on groundwater storage. We've given direction to remove the expansion of Pardee Reservoir from our water supply management plan. So, thank you. And I feel like we're on track to be sustainable by 2040. Are we doing the most we can? I don't think that we're doing the most we can right now. But I think if you look at the crisis that we're facing, I think we're managing our water supply future in a way where we are not going to be rationing more than 15% during the next 30 years. And we're going to be able to manage our water supply without building a new dam. And so I think those are the objectives, those are the end objectives that we can feel comfortable about. To move beyond that, I think we need to look at new members of the board of directors.
Yeah, and I was going to make that plug, that any of you who don't live in Andy's district, when the elections come up for MUD board members, you want to look very carefully, because unless there's more board members who understand these issues and are really going to be advocates for it, we'll have business as usual.
Well, when it comes to conservation, we're a very well-run agency, and a lot of our conservation programs have been looked to as a model and have been parroted by water agencies all over the state. So I'm very proud of that, and that's why I'm excited about looking into community choice for maximizing our energy efficiency opportunities for our community.
I think we have time for one more question.
Personal Nancy, as a bike advocate, thank you so much for making Berkeley more bike friendly. It's just really a wonderful model, not only regionally but nationally. So thank you for all your hard work on that. I was just thinking about it. I want to have you talk just for a second more about that community choice for energy, and that whole program, because as we go to more plug-ins and more electrical vehicles, I mean, half of electricity is coming from coal. So
Not in California.
but nationally, so nationally, as we're going to electric vehicles, is that really the solution? So if you could kind of address that, but also talk a little bit more about the community choice structure.
Sure. From a technological perspective, there's still a benefit to having our vehicle transportation coming from electric sources as opposed to oil. There's still a benefit there, and especially as we approach more indications of grid parity with solar, as we have more wind development opportunities all around the country, there is still a very significant benefit to having more electrified vehicle transportation. Assuming, of course, that we're encouraging our federal government to invest in new starts of rail transportation.
Not really the solution. So if you could kind of address that, but also talk a little bit more about the community choice structure.
Sure. From a technological perspective, there's still a benefit to having our vehicle transportation coming from electric sources as opposed to oil. There's still a benefit there, and especially as we approach more indications of grid parity with solar, as we have more wind development opportunities all around the country, there's still a very significant benefit to having more electrified vehicle transportation. Assuming, of course, that we're encouraging our federal government to invest in new starts of rail transportation all